when a quiet 12-year-old girl, barefoot, shy, wearing her mother's oversized hand-me-downs, stepped into a million-dollar mansion. No one even noticed her. She was just the maid's daughter, just another invisible child in a world painted with arrogance. But then, she stopped in front of the mansion's pride, a giant canvas framed in gold. She tilted her head, squinted, and whispered the four words that made the entire gallery freeze. "This painting is fake." What no one knew was that this little girl, with more heart than privilege, was about to expose the biggest art fraud in modern history and change her mother's life forever. The Whitmore mansion shimmered like a palace, glass chandeliers dripping light, marble floors warm under velvet rugs, and walls dressed in rare art pieces worth more than most people's entire lives. Tonight was the grand unveiling of a $12 million masterpiece, and the city's elite floated through the gallery with champagne flutes in hand. At the back of the hall stood Zara, 12 years old, small, quiet, her mother's uniform slightly too big for her. She wasn't supposed to be seen. She wasn't supposed to speak. She was only there because her mother, the housemaid, had nowhere else to leave her. But Mrs. Peton, with her diamond necklace and sharp tongue, made sure everyone noticed. "Children like her don't belong near priceless art," she said loudly, waving Zara away like dust. "They wouldn't know a brushstroke from a broom." Guests chuckled. Zara lowered her eyes, but she didn't move, because something on the wall behind Mrs. Peton had caught her attention. She stepped forward, calmly, respectfully, and stared at the massive canvas. Colors, patterns, strokes, something was wrong. "Very wrong, that Mrs. Peton hissed, "Don't you dare touch." Zara spoke softly, in perfect, fluent French. "Ce n'est pas l'original." This is not the original. The entire room froze. Heads turned. Glasses stopped midair. A 12-year-old maid's daughter had just challenged a $12 million painting. "This piece, it's fake," Zara continued, her voice steady. "The brush layering is wrong. And the signature, it's copied." A ripple of shock rushed through the gallery, and at the far end of the room, Dr. Adrian Whitmore, the mansion's owner, art historian, and one of the sharpest minds alive, slowly turned toward the little girl everyone tried to silence. But unlike the others, he didn't see a maid's daughter, he saw brilliance. The mansion had never felt so silent. After the chaos of the gallery, Dr. Adrian Whitmore escorted Zara and her trembling mother through a long hallway lined with portraits of scholars, explorers, and artists who had changed the world. The air inside his private library smelled of old wood, rare books, and something else. Possibility. Zara walked in slowly, her eyes widening as she turned in a slow circle. The room stretched upward like a cathedral, walls overflowing with thousands of books, some older than the country itself. Golden lamps glowed warmly, and a massive oak desk sat beneath a skylight, illuminated by the soft evening moon. For Zara, it felt like stepping into heaven. For her mother, it felt like stepping into danger. "Sir, please," her mother begged, wringing her hands. She didn't mean disrespect. "Please don't be angry with her. She's only a child, not just a child," Dr. Whitmore murmured. "A child who saw what 20 experts didn't." Zara's mother swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. She clutched her daughter's shoulders as though ready to shield her if needed. Zara kept staring at the bookshelves. Hundreds of colors, titles she had only seen on dusty screens or heard about in documentaries, she watched on a cracked old phone. "Zara," Dr. Whitmore said gently, "why did you say the painting was fake?" Zara blinked up at him, not frightened, not hesitant, just honest, because it was, she replied simply. He smiled, slow, impressed, curious. "Tell me how you knew." She stepped closer to the desk, hands clasped behind her back like a student reciting a lesson. The strokes lacked the texture of Fournier's late-period work, she explained, using the painter's full name with perfect pronunciation. His originals always have 3 layers of shading on the lower right corners. This one had only one, and the signature was missing his pressure marks. Dr. Whitmore leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. "You know Fournier's techniques?" Zara nodded. "I studied him." "Where?" "From the library." He blinked. "Which library?" She pointed, "Not to his, to your mansion's cleaning closet." Her mother closed her eyes in embarrassment, but Dr. Whitmore leaned forward, intrigued. Zara continued, "There are old books in the storage cabinet, stained and torn but beautiful. I read them every time Mama worked late." Her mother looked down, ashamed. "I told her not to touch them. They belong to your father. I didn't want her in trouble." Dr. Whitmore almost laughed, not out of mockery, but disbelief. "You read French art manuals in a storage closet?" he asked. Zara nodded again. "And how," he continued slowly, "did you learn to speak French so fluently?" This time, the little girl hesitated, just for a moment. "There was an app, one of those free ones," she said. "It limits lessons unless you buy the premium version. But I repeated the free lessons every day. For years. If you repeat something enough times, it sticks." Her mother whispered. "She used my old phone. The screen is cracked. Sometimes the audio doesn't work. But she insists she can hear the words anyway." Dr. Whitmore's throat tightened. He took a breath. "In Italian?" She nodded. "Spanish?" Another nod. "German?" She blushed slightly. "That one was hard. But I learned enough to read basic texts." He sat silently for a long time. Zara stood there in her faded clothes, her hair tied with a frayed ribbon, her shoes slightly torn at the sides. She looked like a child who lived in the shadows of luxury. But her presence, her poise, her brilliance, filled the entire library with a light that could not be ignored. He turned to her mother, who was wiping tears with her scarf. "How long has she been like this?" he asked softly. "Like what, sir?" "A genius." Her mother shook her head. "She's just Zara. She reads everything. Always has. Ever since she was little." Zara added quietly, "Mama worked from early morning until night. I didn't want to disturb her. So I taught myself things. Stories. Languages. Art. Whatever I could find." "And why art?" Dr. Whitmore asked. Zara walked to one of the shelves, running her fingers lightly over the spines of the books. "Because art tells the truth," she whispered. "Even when people lie." Dr. Whitmore felt a chill, not of fear, but of awe. Here, standing in the mansion he had inherited from generations of scholars, was the most extraordinary mind he had ever encountered. And she had been here for 12 years. Invisible, unseen to the child with a heart full of quiet determination and a mind sharper than the critics he debated all his life. He looked at her hands, small, delicate, marked with faint impressions of cleaning chemicals. He looked at her shoes, worn out but polished, as if she tried her best to look presentable rather than pitiful. He looked at her mother, tired, overworked, carrying the weight of survival on her shoulders. And suddenly, something inside him shifted. "Zara," he said softly, "may I ask you a question?" "Yes, sir." "When you read, how much do you understand?" She took a long breath. "All of it," she said. "Even the advanced art theory texts?" She nodded. "If I don't understand something, I'll learn the word, then learn the sentence. I keep trying until it makes sense." He stared at her in stunned silence. Then he repeated, almost to himself, "A hidden genius for 12 years." Her mother broke down in tears. "I tried, sir," she whispered, voice trembling. "I wanted her to study properly, to go to a real school, but I could only afford one uniform. Books were too expensive. Apps, we only used the free versions." She deserved more, but Dr. Whitmore stood, not in anger, not in pity, but in respect. He walked around the desk and kneeled in front of Zara, so they were eye level. "Zara, you said art tells the truth. So let me tell you a truth." He smiled softly, eyes glistening. "You are extraordinary." Zara froze, breath catching in her throat. "No matter who tried to silence you, no matter who looked down on you, brilliance always finds a way to be seen." Her mother wiped her tears again, and then he said the words that changed both of their lives. "Starting tomorrow, you study here, in this library, properly, with guidance, with books, with everything you need." Zara's eyes widened. Her mother clutched her chest, overwhelmed. "Sir, please, we can't afford. This is not charity," Dr. Whitmore said firmly. "This is an investment in a once-in-a-generation mind." He extended his hand to Zara. "Let me help you become everything the world told you you couldn't." Zara looked up at him, hope glowing in her eyes for the first time in her life. and placed her small hand in his. The moment she did, Dr. Whitmore felt it too. The discovery of a hidden genius, the kind that comes once in a lifetime. The next morning, the Whitmore mansion buzzed with a kind of energy it hadn't felt in years. Word of the little girl who exposed a multi-million-dollar fraud had already reached the city's top art institutions. Phones rang nonstop. Messages poured in. Everyone wanted to know, who was she? How did she notice something 20 certified experts missed? Was it a fluke or brilliance? Dr. Adrian Whitmore knew the answer, but he wanted the world to see it too. So he arranged a meeting. No, a test at the Whitmore Authentication Lab, one of the most advanced art analysis facilities in the country, that a place where no mistake could hide, that a place where truth lived under microscopes and cold white lights. The lab, Zara stepped into the lab wearing a simple blue dress her mother had ironed twice that morning. Her hair was tied neatly, her shoes polished, her eyes wide with wonder and nervousness. The room hummed with machines. X-ray scanners, spectrometers, ultraviolet lamps, and digital microscopes worth more than a small house. Around her stood 11 experts, art historians, forensic analysts, restoration specialists, and critics. Critics who whispered behind clipboards. Is this a joke? A maid's daughter? She's just a child. Whitmore's lost his mind. Zara heard every word. She didn't flinch, doctor. Whitmore gently placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You don't need to impress them, he whispered. Just tell the truth. The interrogation beast, the lead expert, Professor Halden, a tall man with silver glasses and a reputation for arrogance, crossed his arms. So, he said, looking down at Zara, you believe you can authenticate a painting valued at $12 million? Zara spoke softly. I already did. A few experts chuckled. Halden smirked. And what exactly did you see? Without hesitation, Zara turned to the giant digital screen showing ultra-high-resolution scans of the painting. Her voice steady, she spoke in perfect French, analyzing the signature stroke patterns of painter Etienne Fournier. The French art historian in the group blinked, and then nodded slowly, shocked. Halden raised an eyebrow. So you speak French. Anyone can memorize a few phrases. Zara switched languages without missing a breath. Italian, Spanish, German, fluid, precise, confident. Each explanation matched a different expert's native language. Their faces shifted, from annoyance to confusion, to respect, but Halden refused to yield. Language tricks don't prove anything, he snapped. Explain the layering inconsistency you claim to see. Zara stepped up to the microscope. Her small fingers adjusted the knobs like she'd been using the machine for years. The real Fournier paintings, she said, have a unique tri-layer pigment gradient on the lower right. Always, even in his early work. She zoomed in, pointed. This one has one layer. An imitator's mistake. The room went silent. One expert whispered, she's right. Another frowned deeply. I've authenticated 30 Fournier pieces, and I never noticed this pattern. Zara wasn't done yet. Science speaks the TRU teach the X-ray machine, hum to life. Doctor. Whitmore let Zara press the activation button. The experts watched the scans emerge line by line. Zara walked to the projection, pointing with calm certainty. Fournier left faint underdrawings, circles and grids, she said. He did it to balance his colors. You see this? This painting has none. Halden leaned closer, squinting that IT was true. Next came spectroscopy. Zara placed the sample carefully. She had never used such a machine before, but her posture said she belonged there. The results blinked onto the screen. The titanium white in this painting, Zara explained, wasn't commercialized until 4 years after Fournier died. A gasp broke through the room. Professor Halden's face drained of color. One by one, the experts stepped forward, double-checking, verifying, running their own tests. Every machine, every scan, every reading matched Zara's words exactly. From doubted to after 2 hours, the experts gathered around her, not towering above her, but forming a circle around her. A historian cleared his throat. Where did you study, young lady? Zara lowered her eyes shyly. In a storage closet. The group stared. She continued, voice soft but certain. I read whatever books I found, and I used free language apps. The rest I learned from observing and remembering. A restoration expert muttered under his breath, "This isn't talent. It's genius." Another added, "She has an eye trained beyond any textbook." Even the French historian who initially dismissed her now spoke with awe. She analyzes like someone who has lived a lifetime in museums. Only one person hadn't spoken. Professor Halden. He stood rigid, jaw clenched, staring at the scan results. Finally, he exhaled and approached Zara. The entire room fell silent. He knelt down, something no one had ever seen him do, and looked her in the eyes. "I was wrong," he admitted. "You are not a child guessing." He swallowed. "You are a prodigy." Zara froze, and no one had ever said those words to her. Not teachers, not neighbors, not the people who mocked her mother. No one had except Dr. Whitmore. Halden slowly extended his hand. "Forgive my ignorance. And, if you allow me, I would like to learn how you saw what we didn't." The other experts nodded. Some even smiling proudly. Point one said, "We should hire her as a consultant." Another added, "Not hire, invite." With respect, Zara blinked back tears, not because she wanted fame, not because of the applause slowly filling the room, but because for the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible, she wasn't dismissed, she wasn't the maid's daughter. She was needed, valued, seen. Dr. Whitmore gently placed his hand on her shoulder again, whispering, "Told you, brilliance always finds a way." Zara looked around the room. These experts, these adults who once doubted her, now watching her with admiration, not skepticism. And in that moment, a transformation ignited. A girl who entered the lab as a nobody walked out as one of the most important voices in the room. The prodigy they never saw coming, the expert they never thought they needed, the child who rewrote the rules of genius, victorious, powerful, unstoppable. The Whitmore Authentication Lab had barely calmed from the shock of Zara's brilliant analysis when a new kind of tension rippled through the building. Heavy footsteps, clipped voices, the unmistakable static of radios. The Dr. Whitmore turned toward the hallway just as two tall agents in dark navy jackets entered. Yellow letters across their backs made the entire room freeze. FBI. Every expert straightened immediately. Zara instinctively stepped closer to her mother, who had been waiting quietly in a corner, hands clasped tightly, heart racing with worry for her daughter. Point one of the agents, a stern woman with sharp eyes, addressed Dr. Whitmore. "Sir, we received your report. You stated that the Fournier painting authenticated last year by the Global Arts Registry appears to be a forgery." "Yes," Whitmore replied, glancing at Zara. "Thanks to her." The agent's eyes followed his and widened. "This child exposed a $12 million fraud?" Whitmore nodded, with accuracy beyond any expert I've seen. The agent crouched slightly to Zara's height. "You did this?" Zara hesitated, then nodded gently. Before the agent could respond, the lab doors swung open once more, and in walked a man dressed in a three-piece gray suit, a silk scarf draped around his neck, and an ego large enough to fill the entire hallway. His arrival sucked the air out of the room. Antoine Dubois, the most influential art dealer in Europe, respected by some, feared by many, and now, implicated, he walked in with the confidence of a man who believed laws existed for other people. "Miss Amos," he said dramatically, spreading his arms. "Why the tension? Did someone spill paint?" His smile vanished when he saw the FBI. "What is this?" he demanded. "We're investigating a global forgery network," the agent replied calmly. "And you are one of the persons of interest." Dubois scoffed. "Ridiculous. I deal only in originals." Then his eyes landed on Zara. The corner of his lip curled with contempt. "And this," he sneered in French, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Un petit servant? Un enfant sale? Et vous croyez qu'elle c'est là? A little servant? A dirty child? And you believe she knows art?" Some experts shifted uncomfortably. Zara's mother stiffened, embarrassment turning her face red. Dubois continued mockingly. "Oh, any pourrait pas reconnaître un chef d'oeuvre même si on le lui jetait au visage." She couldn't recognize a masterpiece, even if it was thrown in her face. He chuckled. Then a voice cut sharply through the room to Zara's. Would you like me to translate? She asked in flawless French. The room froze. That Du Bois's laughter died instantly. His face paled. Zara took a breath, stepped forward, and repeated every phrase he had spoken. Not with anger, not with hostility, but with calm precision. Then she added, "In that last sentence, sir, would you like me to translate your whisper too?" Everyone stared. Du Bois blinked. What whisper? Zahatilted Ered. You said ils ne trouveront jamais mes archives. They'll never find my archives. The FBI agent's eyes snapped toward Du Bois. You have archives? Du Bois stuttered. I didn't say. She's making it up. Zara stepped toward the projector. With swift fingers, she typed into the search bar the coordinates she had overheard from Du Bois's phone earlier. Numbers he muttered under his breath when he walked in. Thinking no one heard it, a map popped on the screen, .5 red dots, .5 countries. The agent gasped. These are known hotspots for arts smuggling. Du Bois lunged forward. Turn that off. I didn't hack anything, Zara replied. You said the numbers. Out loud. Du Bois froze. The room erupted with tension that FBI radios crackled. Within seconds, 5 agents stormed in. The lead agent turned to Zara. Are these locations related to fake Fournier pieces? Yes, she said calmly. And several stolen originals. How do you know? She tapped the map. These match the transport routes used by the forgery network that copied Fournier's early works. And the pigments used in those forgeries? They're only manufactured in 2 of these regions. Experts murmured in disbelief. The doctor. Whitmore stared at Zara with awe. Her mother covered her mouth, tears spilling. Du Bois's face contorted with fury. You little. He lunged again, but 3 FBI agents pinned him down before he could cross the room. Antoine Du Bois, the agent announced, you're under arrest for international art fraud, trafficking stolen works, and conspiracy. Du Bois screamed curses in French. Zara translated them all, deadpan. The experts actually snorted with laughter. Worldwide, the FBI acted fast. Within hours, coordinated raids launched across France, Belgium, Argentina, Singapore, and Morocco. Warehouses were cracked open, crates stacked to the ceiling, hundreds of forged paintings, some worth millions, some stolen from museums decades ago. International news exploded. 12-year-old exposes global art scam. Child prodigy uncovers $240 million fraud ring. Maid's daughter becomes world's youngest art analyst. People couldn't believe it. But they wanted to see her. The global press, it was Dr. Whitmore's idea. Not to show off Zara, but to protect her narrative from being twisted. The room overflowed with journalists. Lights flashed. Cameras clicked. Zara stepped onto the stage in a simple dress, holding her mother's hand tightly. She stood before microphones taller than her. The first reporter asked, "How did you catch what international experts?" "Miss," Zara took a shaky breath. "I paid attention," she said. "Sometimes people ignore what's small, but small things tell the truth." Another reporter asked, "How did you learn 5 languages?" "In my mother's cleaning closet," she replied honestly, "with old books and free apps." The room fell silent. Her innocence made the world lean in closer. Then came the question everyone held. What do you want now? Money? Fame? A scholarship? Zara looked at her mother, then at Dr. Whitmore. Then she shook her head softly. "I don't want anything for myself," she said. "I want children like me, who clean floors and carry bags and get ignored every day to have a chance to learn. Even if they're poor, even if no one believes in them." Her voice trembled. Talent isn't rich or poor. It's just hidden sometimes. The world fell in love with her that moment. The press conference went viral before she even left the podium. Mrs. Peton later that evening, when the crowd dispersed and the cameras cooled, a familiar woman stood at the edge of the hall. Mrs. Peton, the woman who once mocked Zara, who laughed at her, who called her unworthy of standing near art. Now her eyes were swollen from crying. Her makeup smudged. She stepped forward timidly. "Zara," she whispered, I owe you an apology." Zara blinked in surprise. Mrs. Peton's voice cracked. "I judged you. I insulted you. I treated you like you didn't belong. But today, you showed the whole world how wrong I was." She swallowed. "I'm sorry. Truly." Zara glanced at her mother, then stepped closer. "You don't need to apologize to me," she said softly to Mrs. Peton frowned. "Why not?" Zara smiled gently, not triumphant, not proud, but full of quiet grace. "Because apologies only help if you change something." Mrs. Peton blinked. Zara continued softly. "Help educate other children. Not just me. Kids who work in houses, markets, workshops. Kids who are ignored." She looked up, voice steady. "Help them. That's how you can say sorry." Mrs. Peton covered her mouth, tears falling freely. She nodded and whispered, "I will." And for the first time, she looked at Zara not with superiority, but with respect. The girl who shook the WLD that night, as news anchors replayed Zara's speech across continents, as governments began discussing scholarships for underprivileged child learners, as museums reviewed every painting authenticated in the last decade. A 12-year-old girl sat quietly in Dr. Whitmore's library, feet dangling from a chair, book open on her lap, mother beside her, stroking her hair, and Dr. Whitmore watching her. With the proudest eyes a mentor could have, a girl once invisible now illuminated the globe that a maid's daughter, who shook a world of power, money, and art, not with force, not with privilege, but with truth and a heart big enough to lift others with her. 6 months later, the world looked different, not louder, not richer, just fairer. Museums from New York to Paris quietly rewrote their hiring systems. No longer were positions limited to elite graduates or established experts. New programs opened, inviting gifted children, self-taught artists, multilingual kids from working-class families, anyone with passion instead of privilege. Directors admitted something they once believed impossible. Genius doesn't always arrive wearing a suit. Sometimes it enters in worn shoes. Because of Zara, her discovery didn't just catch one forgery. It prevented hundreds. Millions of dollars saved. Dozens of stolen originals returned to their rightful homes. The entire global art market reevaluated its security, its biases, its gatekeeping. All because a quiet 12-year-old wasn't afraid to tell the truth that every Saturday. A new kind of essential. Despite the fame, Zara still lived simply. Still wore hand-me-down dresses. Still spent afternoons in Dr. Whitmore's library. But every Saturday at 10 a.m., she walked into the old community center downtown, a place with peeling paint and creaky doors, and became something unexpected. A teacher. Children from poor neighborhoods gathered around her, gripping coloring books, old tablets, donated pencils. Some spoke broken English. Some came from families who cleaned houses, washed dishes, repaired shoes, or sold vegetables on the street. Zara looked at them and saw herself. She taught them French phrases, taught them how to examine brush strokes, taught them how to believe in the intelligence others overlooked. The staff at the mansion watched with awe. Inspired, they began discovering their own hidden talents. The gardener joined night classes in botany. The cook began selling her recipes online. The driver started painting landscapes during lunch breaks. Zara's courage had unlocked something in everyone. If a child like her could rise, maybe their dreams weren't impossible either. Scholarships and MNT governments responded faster than anyone expected. New scholarships were created in her honor. The Zara Initiative, Education for the Unseen. Child, free language apps expanded access globally. Libraries added open access zones for poor students. Documentaries were made about hidden child prodigies around the world. But the real turning point happened the day Zara walked onto a stage at the United Nations that a hall of 2,000 people stood as she entered. Heads of state, directors, ambassadors. Her mother watched from the front row, trembling with pride that Zara's voice was small, but the hall was silent enough to catch every word. "Talent has no uniform," she began. "It doesn't wear rich clothes. It doesn't speak only one language. It doesn't belong to one country or one class. That IT belongs to anyone willing to learn, anyone brave enough to try." She paused. "I wasn't special because I'm smart. I was special because someone finally noticed." The hall erupted into applause. Her words became a global slogan. Talent has no uniform. Printed on posters, echoed in schools, painted on murals in cities from Dakar to Manila, and ending only love could W at night. Back home, Zara sat in the warm glow of their small living room. Her mother sat beside her, holding her hand the same way she did the night the truth began. Tears filled her mother's eyes. "I'm sorry I couldn't give you more," she whispered. Zara rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "You gave me everything," she said softly. "You gave me kindness. You gave me strength. You gave me the reason to try." Her mother held her tightly, the kind of embrace that carried years of sacrifice, pain, devotion, and pride. And as they sat together in the quiet, Zara whispered the message the whole world would remember. Brilliance doesn't need permission, only recognition. And as Zara walked out of that museum, hand in hand with her mother, the world finally understood something it should have known all along. Brilliance doesn't come from wealth, that it comes from courage, hunger, and someone daring to say, "I can." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that talent can rise from anywhere, then don't let it end here. Backend Index Pointing Right, like the video to support stories that matter. Backend Index Pointing Right, subscribe so you never miss the next inspiring journey. Backend Index Pointing Right, share this story with someone who still believes their background limits their future, because somewhere out there, another Zara is waiting to be seen, and maybe your share is what helps the world finally notice her.